All right. Good morning, good evening, afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Versus Live. Where we talk all things poetry. To join you tonight, there's me. Hello, my name is Jeff,
And I'm Matthias.
and we have a couple topics that we're going to be getting into, including our really big topic, Matthias. Our main topic that we're going to get to towards the end is
Yeah.
about how do you write about the big topics? Like,
Mm.
if you had to write a poem about war
Hmm.
or racism.
why why are we
Or
getting increasingly laughing? War, racism, murder. It tickles me. We are not
Well,
psychopaths.
it's
I'm
global
almost sure.
warming. How to write about big topics in a way that kind of avoids some of the issues that I think you and I have both seen.
We've seen it a lot. I mean, because I think we'll talk about it later. We'll
We will get into that.
talk about it later.
A couple of little things before we get into that
Little
fun stuff,
things.
though. So first things first. Season 2 of our open mic kicked off, which is exciting.
Yeah, dude, it was so amazing. I feel like it was a full room, so that was
Yep.
fun. That was nice. But then also, man, so many people had some really amazing stories, and they came through, and they were excited to present on the open mic, and everybody did a great job. Clap it up for everybody that
Yes.
came through and performed at the open mic at Third Way Cafe
Yes.
on last Friday.
Mhm. And again, it is every Friday as well. You know, a lot of the reasons why I think I was happy with the attendance. Attendance was, I mean, it was full.
It was full.
There was literally no room.
It was full.
We couldn't even like if five more people. I don't know where they would have fit. All the strategies that we've talked about are things that we used,
Yeah.
and it worked.
And you know what? And I think it also, I mean, one of the things that it goes to show you is that I think when you're actually doing things to market towards your audience and it actually picks up your audience, because again, we could have easily just put out something general out to everybody in hopes that we're able to catch as many people as possible. Maybe we do, but I think a lot of times the people that you catch are people that maybe aren't necessarily interested in poetry, but they're maybe just
Yeah.
looking for something to have, like, what do I do on a Friday?
Right.
And then it just kind of go, oh, maybe that was a few of them. But I think for the most part, especially in engaging with people after the show and engaging with people
Yeah.
before the show, and really during the show, one of the things that you really got the sense of is that everybody was really interested in poems and everybody was really
Yeah.
interested in kind of bringing some stuff to the forefront. And there's a lot of people that were there that were interested in making their poems into a way of life. So like that
Yeah.
was like, and like a way to like feed themselves. And there's some
Mhm.
people that we kind of interacted with on that level. So shout out to y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming. That was
Also, a lot of
beautiful.
first timers, which is cool.
Yeah, first time poetry readers. Yeah, being a first time poetry reader at an open mic that you've never been to before,
There are many levels to
that's
that. Yeah.
that's scary. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that could be maybe scarier than that is like doing that in like a state that you've never been to. Like you know what I mean? Like traveling somewhere in which may like some of them were traveling, maybe not like super far out, but like that like there's kind of levels to like getting in front of people and being doing this public speaking thing. So yeah, man, a lot of people were there's some bravery.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you were excited about your evening after the show.
Oh my god! Oh, speaking of bravery, oh my goodness! So
Show them
okay,
what you used. Show
wait,
them.
hold on. We got to
Okay.
we got we
Okay.
got to we
Okay.
got to
Okay.
lean them
Okay.
in.
Okay. Okay.
We
Okay.
got to lean them into. So a first of all, after the open mic and we're cleaning up and everything like that. First of all, I want to say like in most of the times, if you see us at an event together, if me or Jeff are like at an event, typically even after the event we're spending like quite a while like kind of just talking and kind of like talking about the event or talking about other things that we can do to kind of like really push like the art or push the culture and stuff like that. So that's a space that I really appreciate because I think that sometimes we kind of take for granted spaces where we can like really kind of enrich each other and really kind of push each other forward. And so I feel like I'm really like pushed forward and like pushed forward mentally in those kind of
Yeah.
spaces. So clap it up for Jeff. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
well, actually, no. Let's hit the golf button. So that was really nice. So after that, I hop and I'm on the way. I'm on the way home. And as I'm on my way home, my wife, she gives me a call and she's like frantic, right? And she's like, Matt, get home, please, hurry up, you gotta get home. There's a bat in the house. Now I know what you might have said, like, what does a Louisville Slugger have to do with your? No, I no, but it was an animal. It was the bat that flies, bat that flies around your home, and me, I'm like, what? I've never had a bat inside my house before, so I was like, I
Mm.
was freaking out, like, what is going on? What do you mean there's a bat in the house? And so, and there's like a little bit of a traffic jam, so I was like a little bit more anxiety. But as soon as I was able to get through the traffic jam, I raced home and I pull up to the house. And I'm thinking, like, I'm about to walk into a house and it's like my wife, my dog, and a bat that's flying around.
It's a new addition.
So I'm like, how am I gonna deal with this bat? How am I gonna handle this bat? And like, and I go to the trunk. So, and if you've been familiar with maybe being black in your life, then going to the trunk means you mean business, okay? And I did mean business.
Dad or
Let's go ahead and maybe a little sad violin. If I'm being honest, we might do both. But yeah, so I go to the trunk and I'm like, I see initially there's this like snow, it's a shovel thing that you use for like to get like snow off your car, right? And
You may have heard of it in Ohio.
you might have heard in Ohio, like it's a windshield shovel, but it's like there's another like foam part that kind of had this large part where you can kind of push a whole lot of snow off your car, right? And I picked that up out my car at first, and I reach for it, I have it in my hand, I kind of get it level, like, okay, this is what I'm going to use to do away with this bat. And I start walking away, and I almost shut the trunk. But then, at the corner of my eye, a little silver thing catches my eye. What is it? This bad boy.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Now, if you know, I'm a photographer, videographer. I do short films and stuff like that. So, like this right here, it was in my trunk. I was using it for another photo shoot probably some time ago. But I saw this, and I was just like, I think it's destiny. I think I'm supposed to use this sword in this exact
There
situation.
can only be one. I am.
I am the and so I I grab the sword out of the trunk and I go upstairs and I walk around the corner of the building and I go into our apartment. And if you've never been in my home before, then you won't know this. But then you won't know this. But when you open the doors, it's like we have like the opening way, and then there's like the steps that lead up into our apartment, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like I wonder what I'm gonna be like. Like I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for this bat because I don't know where it's gonna be. Like literally, as soon as I open up the door, it's like flying around like right above me. So I'm like, holy crap! Like there's a bat, and there's like really a bat in the house. And so I kind of walk up the steps, and I really okay. Here's the thing. I know I didn't really have a score playing behind me. I know that. I understand that. But in my heart, it was like the Game of Thrones like theme song was like playing in the background as I was like going up the steps like slowly, like going towards like the bat because I'm thinking to myself like it's my wife and my dog in the house. Like I got to protect my home. So I got to do away with the bat, right? And so I go up the steps and the bat is kind of doing this like circle arc around the house, right? Just terrorizing my wife and my dog. I wasn't afraid. Okay, I was not. It's swooping around and it does like 3 or 4 kind of rotations. And I have this box in my hand that's like it's a box that we got like paper towels or whatever in from Amazon. So but I have this box in my hand. I'm trying to
if it fell on the floor.
yeah, you had to hold it exactly like that. It's brawny, so it's the thicker picker upper, but it's not picking this data. But then like I'm trying to like catch it in the box, but it's like not going. Like there's no way. And I'm like, okay, I'm at the top of the steps. This bat knows where I'm at. It's either me or him.
It's Matt or Bat.
And I chose me. And so it came around, I sized them up, and then I held the box open like this. And like and I'm sure the bat's head is thinking, like, oh, he just has this stupid box. Like he can't do anything with that. And then I drop the box slowly, and then I swing the sword, and I come down with the sword. And the thing is, I felt the hit. I felt the hit through the sword. But then as soon as I felt the hit, I turned around and then I backed up from it. And I still had the sword in my hand, but the box was dropped. And I'm like, okay, where's that? Because maybe it's like maybe I hit it, but I thought the bat was gonna be like more durable. You know what I mean? Like I thought like the bat was gonna be like, oh god dang, you got me once, like round two. And so I'm like looking for the bat, but there's no bat. There's no bat. And like my wife like kind of enters into the living room, and my dog's like kind of sniffing around, and my dog is like oblivious, right? She's not concerned. And so she we're walking around, and she's kind of sniffing around, and she goes down the steps because I'm thinking maybe it fell down the steps. It did not. We have these two chairs that my wife bought, and right in between the two chairs laying on the floor is this dead bat. And I just want to say that like I had no idea when I was leaving the Diverses open mic that Friday that I would be killing a bat with a sword that day.
Hopefully, this isn't like a weekly occurrence. I'm just saying.
That's why I'm looking forward to this coming up Friday at Third Way Cafe, because guess what? I'm prepared. Now I'm prepared. So if you would like to be prepared for the bats in your home, go to the open mic. Maybe you'll learn a lesson. So
thank you.
That's my story time. We'll go ahead and clap it up for story time. Thank you so much. That was just it was a good time.
I've dealt with bats before. I have not hit them with a sword.
And that's
I ushered them out the door. It takes a lot of coax.
And that's why they keep coming back, because they're like, oh, this guy's just gonna put me outside. There's a gang of bats out there right now, like, DeAndre, he went into the house and never came back out. All your bats are out there telling the story of this guy wrapped me up in a cover. It was comfortable.
It's nice blanket. So I have a thing that kind of happened today on the social webs.
All the social webs.
It was an interesting interaction, and I want to get your thoughts on this. This is on Threads. You can find us at the Versus Poetry.
The Versus Poetry on Threads.
Find us. Blow this up. I want to get your thoughts. Okay. So, on social media, especially on Thread, I feel like when you make posts on social media is a public forum. Do you agree or do you disagree?
It's yeah.
So I feel like when people are putting posts out there, it is a reach for interaction on some level.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay. So I asked this. So this person said, this year I would like to be a published author. Period. #poetry. Nice. We like goals. I like this goal. I asked, why is that? Is that an unfair question?
I don't think it's an unfair question. It's not an unfair question. I don't believe it's
an insulting question. If you posted that you would like to be a published author and someone asks you, why is that?
No, I wouldn't take it as insulting. I could see why. I could see somebody, if they're in a certain mindset about their work, taking it insulting wise, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like I would think there's probably something else behind that question.
Because the response, not even from the originator, is hold up. Things like this.
We've officially gotten to the point in the poetry journey, in Diverse's journey, where Jeff is going into the replies, and he's going to expose you. He's going to expose you on the YouTube channel, and this is going to be the pathway into the dark side. I am curious. Okay, so hold on. Let's go up to the original post. Okay. So we're gonna kind of dissect this kind of one by one. Okay. So to spread my poetry, well, actually no, let's go up a little bit further. Okay. So this year I'd like to be a published author. And is this their like version of hashtag like poetry? Yeah. Okay, gotcha. And so your reply is, why is that? I think we kind of need some context. Can we get the other replies? Sure. Can we see what other people were replying? Yeah. All right. So what do you write about? Okay, I see that was a Fair enough. We need more stories like this. I hope you get there too. So that's their whole thing. So they got some stuff going on. I believe in you. I just gave my poetry book to a publisher, and this time last year I wouldn't have imagined I'd be doing that. You can do it. Okay, there we go. Okay, I support this. Okay, and you will be. Bam, you can do it. Is that it? You can do it. You're going to make. Okay, so I would say this in the context of the other responses, it's like I can imagine being like everybody, yeah, do it. I'm on that pathway too. I'm excited for you. And then somebody else being like, why is that? Like I can imagine kind of in the crowd of those voices hearing that because because it's not a directly supportive thing. You know what I mean? I can imagine.
I don't disagree. But also pay attention to the timestamps. Mine was like one of the first.
Yeah, no, I got you.
So everyone else is way 22 minutes, 12 hours ago. Mine was the closest.
Gotcha. Okay.
So very minimal.
Oh, and also you could stand a reason that maybe what you think you were the catalyst to other people noticing. You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting in a couple ways. So one of my fears with
that you're too powerful
social media is if it just turns into you can do it, you will be. I support this. I like the positivity.
There's something else. I like the positivity.
I like it.
But
where does it go? I believe in you. Thanks. I support this. Thanks. You will be. Thanks. You're gonna make it. It's like this is. It doesn't go anywhere.
This is exactly how Palpatine became the Dark Sith Lord. So I love the positivity of the Rebel Alliance, but it's like, why? Why?
So one of the things when I'm commenting on people's posts, like I'm genuinely trying to have a form of a conversation.
For sure.
I am generally trying to avoid interactions where this isn't going to go anywhere. Because you know what kind of comments aren't going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think that like having that kind of engagement as opposed to kind of looking forward to and we talk about this all the time, even when it talks about like your own comment section, like as opposed to just the thank you, great. Instead of that, like actually like try to spur on conversations and trying to have some dialogue. And again, so this is okay, and we'll go to the comment here in a second. But I think this is a good instance where I think that the mindset isn't to be negative, because I don't think that nothing that Diversus does online or offline is like malicious, right? But it's really to actually have the conversations around publishing, around poems, around like the directionality of your work that a lot of times we're just not having, because we're kind of locked into the cycle of, well, if I'm not a published poet, then my goal now is to be a published poet. If I haven't written this kind of poem and sent this kind of poem to this publisher, if I haven't done a book this kind of way, like then these are all my next goals. And it probably is, not even probably, it certainly is a good idea to really analyze the whys behind that, because I also think that a lot of the people that are really successful in their pathways even are they don't have like the typical pathway when it comes to like when it comes to their engagement with poetry, but also they can answer those questions. They can answer, if I want it, maybe there's a great reason for you to be a published person. They're like, do you have an answer? Like
the level of intentionality.
Yeah.
We're not just doing it to do it. No, there's a reason why we're doing it and doing it in this way. And I think one of the things I think is tricky with social media, especially like a text-based platform, is you don't have any context. There's no tone. There's no body language to refer to. Like, it's entirely based on words. And the problem with words is, I think everyone's had the experience of misreading a text message or misinterpreting text messages and things like that. And I think that's something that makes a text-based platform tricky. And I think a lot of times too, people aren't used to, I don't want to say being questioned, but having people not interrogate their work, but like instead of just focusing on like a quick like oh good job or something like that, but actually going into oh well why are you doing it? It's like trying to understand like motivations and things like that.
Yeah.
What I find is that if you do it enough, you find people because this isn't like the first time, but this is just something that happened today. I was like, that's interesting. You find people that become very defensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like but it's also a lot of people. There's a lot of pathways when it comes to either professions or just life in general that seem kind of like a given that a lot of people at there's a lot of people that because the way their brain works, they've always been interrogating those things and they've went a different direction. I think you know what a really good example of this is. There's this uh, there's this YouTuber that essentially since he was like I think 10 years old, he knew that he wanted to be a YouTuber. Like he knew his life trajectory was going to be being a YouTuber. So the only thing that he did was he would post on YouTube every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. He would figure out new ways to make content, figure out new ways to kind of create and things like that. And there's a point in that trajectory where he had the ability to go to college or just do YouTube. Like when he graduates high school, you're just to YouTube. And it's like he chose to no, like my job is YouTube, and I know that I'm going to be YouTubing or what have you. And I think that if you ask him at 16 years old, hey, like why don't you just get a job? Like why don't you just do something normal? Why don't you like kind of apply yourself in this direction? It's like because I knew even back then that this is what I was going to be doing. Like that guy's like Mr. Beast now. You know what I'm saying? Like he's told that story like on other like YouTube like stories and stuff like that, which just are in interviews and things like that. Was just to say that like I think a lot of times people are kind of locked into this frame of this is how a poet, this is how a writer pushes themselves or pushes their work out there. And so because they never ask themselves that question, like maybe somebody asking that question like you could look at it both ways, right? Because you could look at it, why don't why won't you just do this? But like you're thinking like no, this is how you're supposed to do it. But it could also be like somebody on the outside that's like they figured something else out, or they're like that's not as helpful as you think. So now they're asking them the question and they don't understand like okay, you're the one that's conforming too much to the way things feel like they ought to be.
Patrick's here.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. Reed. People like to read things in their own voice and tone gets implied 100% their own lenses. People feel like they're in conflict, go out and engage like they're in conflict 100%.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I think what was very interesting also about this whole interaction that occurred was the original, the OP, like original post, like they didn't say anything, or like they just gave quick answers, but they didn't say anything. So a lot of times the responses that actually ended up coming in to my post were from other people projecting onto it. So that's the other thing. So like, it's like, for instance, this post.
Ooh.
Like,
wait, limericks for days. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to read this.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we scoot it over a little bit?
This was a response.
No. I'm saying like just scoot the screen over. There we go. Okay. So Jeff asks, why is that? And Jeff, Limix for days. Shout out to Limix for days. I don't know who you are in real life. This is a dog, but I'm gonna assume. I know a dog when I see a dog. I'm gonna assume a dog is not sitting behind the laptop, giving us what for. But so, dude, why would you say that? I get it. You see yourself helping at poetry writing, but this ain't inviting. It's just bothersome, dude, bro. Type crap. Bothersome dude, bro, type crap. Be respectful. People don't owe you answers to simple statements like, I'd like to publish my poetry. Ed. Who's Ed?
I think it's Limericks for Days.
Is Limericks for Days? Oh, Ed's Limericks for Days? Okay. That's fine.
Was that
Wait, Jeff. Wait, no. To your reply. Hey, here's Jeff's response. Hey, Limerick, what's trouble? Oh my God. gonna go. Oh my god. Okay. Walk me through this. So
Okay.
why the high limerick? What's troubling you? Why that response?
So I picked that response because there is a lot of emotion here.
Fair. Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out where is this coming from.
Okay. Fair. That's
I'm just trying because I want to. I'm not looking to argue. I'm trying to get
oh,
where is your head at before we even enter into any sort of discussion? Because does it even make sense to engage or not? You know what I mean?
fair.
I'm trying to feel out.
Okay.
That,
What's
that, that was my that was
I thought my I thought my limerick was clear. Your condescension on here towards a thread writer was impoliter.
it's limerick. Sorry again.
Okay. Impoliter towards me, towards more respectful. Please steer.
It basically continues like this for some time.
I need to see more. Would you describe your response to me as respectful? Next. What did he say next? This isn't about trading Gibbs. It's about respecting your fellow scribes. Respecting your fellow scribes, okay? You think you're disarming, but I find you swarming. Giving Joel Osteen vibes. Joel Osteen?
I have not looked at him.
You know who Joel Osteen is?
I don't. But
The megachurch pastor?
oh, what? Oh.
Yeah, he's like, look, I don't know. I don't know.
You're friends with Joel.
I don't know why he's giving Joel Osteen. I have no idea what that. So no, it sucks when someone is rude to you, doesn't it? What have you learned from this experience, Ed? Okay. Ed is limits for days. Now I'm putting it. Okay. Yeah. So wait, what's next?
You want to keep going?
I absolutely, Jeff. You open this bottle. Okay, we have no choice here. Okay. We're
okay.
Giving Joel Osteen vibes. It sounds like just asking a question, a la Tucker Carlson. What?
I'm telling you, man.
Okay, wait, hold on.
It was a morning.
Okay. So it sounds like just asking a question, a la Tucker Carlson. That feels like kind of left field. Okay. I feel like sometimes like people don't have like a good way to like really insult exactly what you're doing, so they kind of tie you in with like a random monster that they perceive.
100%. There's so many.
Yeah.
I've asked questions. I haven't done any name calling. I haven't done any like.
No,
I'm just asking questions.
Listen, I'll say this. I think that knowing social media, I would be like, okay, the initial question, I could see where that kind of goes, like, and not necessarily in a way that's like, it's not your fault, like, because I don't think it's necessarily like your fault, but I think that like on social media, that question in the context of it seeming like the guys, because I also here's I think something that I think we should point out, and that we maybe should stop expecting of social media, right? I think a lot of times people post on social media so they can get the claps and so they can get the you got it, you do it, and they're expecting like the entire social sphere.
If I had done that,
you had done that, there's none of this, right? And so I think that, you know, you should, if you're putting something out there in the world, especially on social media, then you should expect a variety of responses. 100%. And I would make the argument, okay, and I know a lot of these people would not make the argument, and it should be noted that the diverse of social media is like Jeff, right? And so like there's not like, I'm not trying to be like, but it's like Jeff, which is just to say like this is a person that knows Jeff, and I'm like, actually a really good example of this, again, shout out to the Diverse Open Mic every Friday at 7:30 at Third Way Cafe. You should be there. Bring a poem. Interact with us. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. But at Diverse's the open mic, at the end, a gentleman stood up, and he kind of was like, he was just like, hey man, and shout out to Jeff. He's the real
I
deal.
love it.
He reached out to me. We talked about poems. We sat for like an hour and maybe more than that, kind of talking about poems, and he gave me real advice. To be clear, like I think that a lot of times the thing that we're thinking is going to help us is what all the other stuff that happened on that thread. But I'm like, if your goal is to be like, I just want to be published, like if that's your goal, I would make the argument that nobody on that thread could be more facilitative towards that goal than Jeff.
Or
And
even or even people that are the comments that aren't just saying the good job or get it.
yeah,
Those are the ones that if it were the opposite, like I post something like that and people were doing that, those would be the ones. Look, I get social media. I get that people are going to interpret
yeah,
things as they are for a variety of different reasons. I get that. But also just in terms of like attraction, because those are the ones that stand out. Because those are the ones that are like, oh, wait, this person didn't just like say the good job stuff. What they actually asked the question. It's like the same thing like when people ask questions, but then they don't have their own answer. Like I like to start my own posts asking them, "What's your answer?" Like to this,
yeah,
because it opens up for so much more.
yeah. And it's also, again, even if we bring it back down to what the original question is, like
Mhm.
or the original kind of aspiration, like this year I want to be a published author. I think one of the things that you should ask yourself is like, what exactly did you get from being a published author?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, and there's answers there that are genuine and that are good
Mhm.
that you can actually there's things that you can actually build off of. And I think that those are the things that are kind
Mhm.
of undergirding whatever your initial intention is. But I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, they want something in specific,
Mhm.
and they think that being a published author
Mhm.
is the way to get them.
Mhm.
And again, I want to be clear, just kind of bringing it back to like kind of where like the thing that was on. It's
Mhm.
like I think that Jeff has a genuine interest in people's like in the trajectory and the goals. Like me and Jeff have spent
Mhm.
hours talking about, what to do with writing, what to do with poems and stuff like that. And Jeff has, numerous like Jeff has a level of patience and that it doesn't
I mean,
seem like he would, right? It,
I mean,
would-
my
it doesn't seem like he would, right? But
growing up as twins, you learn some things. Yeah.
but it's just like, but I think that what he not even just level of patience. I think that he's been on both sides, right? He's done things for himself and he's kind of created things, but he's also like been on the side where he's published poems and he's been a person that wanted to publish poems. So I think that like this idea that again, I don't know everybody else is on this thread. I would be
Mhm.
willing to bet that if your goal is like I really would just want to publish poems, and like Jeff is probably one of the people that could really kind of give you some thorough good advice on how to do that. And I think that you're a lot of again, I don't know everybody else kind of adding in and chipping
Mhm.
in, and kind of I think there's a lot of negativity therein. I think that was maybe a product of, man, this guy's not just cheering him on like we're all doing,
Mhm.
like where he's not just
Something's wrong with him.
telling him
Mhm.
great job, you're going to do it. He's actually asking a question that might lead to something that's really fulfilling. And I mean they're not saying that, but they're just, that's the thing, that's the coarse thing that you're
Mhm.
hearing, that's the off note, that's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
like everything was a symphony of congratulations, and then you're hearing this like ding, actually why
And
do you
it's
want to do that?
Mhm.
And I think as opposed to pushing that away, or everybody else like kind of pushing that away, like you should really interrogate like, man, maybe there's some substance there.
And I think those are also those sorts of negative responses like okay, you can attack and things like that. I mean, do you, but I think that also is a sign that you're onto something.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
when people are that quick, because the reality is, look, I basically said 3 lines. I've basically said 20 words worth of stuff, and I'm getting back these like pages worth of
Yeah.
attacks and things like that
Wait,
from multiple people
right, and I don't even, I just don't understand where the Tucker Carl.
who
It's
aren't
so
even
it's
the
so
posters,
weird.
who aren't even the original
It's so wait. Is
posters.
there more? Is there more
There is
here?
more, yeah.
Come on, let's
Are
okay.
we,
Let's
we still going?
dude. We have to like. There's
But
no way we
okay,
can't.
I will go. But the one thing I wanted to say is that I think a lot of people don't understand their. I think it's true for writing. I think it's true for any goals. I think a lot of times like writers treat writing as like this like kind of like sacred grail kind of thing. When in reality, there's so many. elements of life that are doing the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
like for instance, I think a lot of people don't understand their intentions. Like they have a goal, but they don't necessarily understand why they have that goal. Like for instance, because he's putting effort into trying to keep a scheme. Yeah, because one of the guys said that I have a marketing scheme. What do I sell?
It's a free open mic, guys.
Free open mic. I have a free webinar. Anyways, a lot of people don't understand their intentions behind why they have a goal. Like for instance, I was meeting my main job. I teach English, so I was meeting with a client today who came to me and was like, you know what, I'm thinking about taking pronunciation classes with you. And whenever I have someone that potentially wants to be a client, I want to understand why and to make sure it's a good fit and to see if I'm even going to be able to meet their goals, you know?
Right.
Versus just like taking them on and just like immediately walking through stuff, you know? And one of the things that we came to was like, oh, I was like, okay, why are you interested in pronunciation? He's like, well, for work, you know, I have to give these presentations in English to one. These are just some things he told me that kind of gave me like some, I was like, that's interesting. So he's saying he's talking to very international clients, you know, people from all around the world. He's mentioned that, yeah, he's doing this in English, but most of the other people who are presenting are also talking with accents. And I asked him, you know, it sounds like you're coming from a point of pain. You know, there's a reason you scheduled to have this call today. Why are we doing this now? And then he mentioned, well, recently I had to give a presentation and I was on stage and I just kind of froze. It was just real painful kind of experience for me. You know, I survived it obviously, but I don't want that sort of thing to happen again.
Right.
And so, you know, I asked him like a couple more questions, but at the end of the class, I'm like, look. Oh, and one other thing too, I asked him was, if you've never had to speak English again for the rest of your life, would you do it? And his answer to that was, no, I'm doing it for work. Okay. So he's not really passionate about the language. He just doesn't want to be embarrassed on stage.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And I'm like, look, I can help you with like pronunciation stuff. I don't think that's the real problem. I think it sounds to me like the real problem is just like a confidence thing, you know? But if we never had that interrogation, like if we never talked about this, he'd be thinking about, oh, I need to take, you know, pronunciation class. I need to take pronunciation class. I need to pick a pronunciation class. Like, which could help in some ways, but it's not really getting
it's not getting to the root of the issue.
The real problem. The real problem is we need to get confident on stage, even if we're speaking another language, you know, but it's really like a confidence thing, public speaking thing. And I was like, you know, it might be more helpful to get like a public speaking coach, trainer, something like that, go over like some confidence strategies on stage. I feel like that would be more effective for you long term. You know, I think pronunciation carries over. And I say that to say that I think that with writing, it's very similar things. Like you mentioned, you know, people say, I want to get published. Why? What's so great about being published? You know, it's all right, you get your name out there. Oh, you get your name in a book. And for some people that's really cool, but that's not to say like this is like the real motive, but like if the real reason is you never felt validated as a kid,
the publishing word is not going to fix that.
But in all
we're not saying that about you.
No,
please,
you know, like,
please, social media. That's not.
But like this is
what he's saying.
But a lot of the goals we have are coming from areas of need that we aren't adequately identifying because it's really hard to do that. You know, blind spots. You know, it's really hard to do that. So, Callisto, good to see you, by the way. Also to Patrick. Let me know. Can you tell me more about what as the answer? Because we said a lot. Yes, and Rose has mentioned that interviewing potential clients, partners, understand why. Yes, I mean you have to know the why. Why are we here? Why having this discussion? Honestly, like if I'm meeting with a potential client, in some ways I don't want another client. No, because it's like
I hate you guys.
I have people already, so it's like if I add you on, now I have to worry about you. You know, it's more work for me. So it's like
this is the exact speech he gave to Tatum when he was born. Shout out to Tatum.
I wanted to be published because I never felt validated as a child.
Nice.
If that's
good.
true, I'm so sorry.
I mean, that's not great as a child, but it's like for you now. It's like.
Anyways, you asked to see the rest of this thread.
Yeah. Okay.
So then I wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Okay, to make sure I'm understanding, we don't know if OP found my post disrespectful. You spoke for them anyways because you did find my post disrespectful. And you tell me you found my post disrespectful. You responded to me in a way you yourself find disrespectful. Additionally, you're speaking for me, saying I am intending to be disarming, trading jibes.
Yeah.
Okay. And also helping writers. Am I missing anything? I just want to make sure we are all on the same page.
You're really just like me. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so please let me apologize. I only hope you might realize your question was rude. I don't know if Ed. I
let it go.
Listen, I'm letting it go. Like I just want to say something about the word objectively. This was objectively incorrect. Placement for it. That's an objectively wrong way. Objectively, dude. But this argument earns us no prize. Okay, but but I'm not even arguing. This is a real Jeff Anderson crash course in social media. But I'm not even arguing. I'm just trying to make sure I get your perspective. It doesn't help either of us if I'm assuming you're saying something you're not. Your opinion that something was rude makes it objectively rude. I get we're only communicating through text, which means nuance and context difficult to navigate. Was that it?
I'm gonna say yes. For that.
Wait, there's more. There's more other interactions. Oh, Jeff. Oh, Jeff got bit by the bug. Okay.
They just kept coming.
Oh man. Oh, that's hilarious. That's good stuff.
Sorry, just checking the connection really quick. Yeah, so that was basically my morning. Was interacting with people that.
Yeah, no, that's the way to spend a Tuesday morning. That's the way. Yeah, I think I think the way the conversation looks like it kind of dissolved, kind of made everybody kind of realize. But I think again, I really can't get over that use of objective like that.
I mean,
that's actually like, kind of. It's almost like when people use a word literally to say something that they actually very clearly mean figuratively. It's like his pants were literally on fire. Like they weren't though. Were they?
Mean, look, I don't. You always have to be in the right headspace. We're like, am I going to engage with this? And I was like, you know what? Today, let's just see where this goes. So I was kind of curious to see, and it went exactly where I thought it would. Where it's just like, okay, we're just going to do ad hominem attacks and talking for other people and.
Yeah, it's like, and unfortunately, I don't know. Did the guy ever respond to you?
To that one, no.
But he did end up responding to you.
Not
the original poster.
There were other the original poster. Yeah, the original poster actually did.
What did he say? I feel like that's an important kind of rabbit hole to go down.
I can find it on here. They were cordial. And after all that happened, I was like, hey, like if you don't want to respond, like don't. I see people are misunderstanding stuff.
Oh, like they reached out to you in via like an inbox or
no, like on their post, but they responded. I mean, they weren't like super detailed answers, but they gave me answers. It's not like they were avoiding it.
Yeah,
they were cordial. They were fine. They never said whether they were insulted or not insulted.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't find it.
That's how it always is. I feel like on social media, I feel like on like everybody kind of, you know, I think it's a lot of people that are because there is no physical IRL response and like kind of consequence of talking any way that you can about people, then the first thought that you have gets said because you know typically if you're in real time, I doubt that a lot of people would say the things that they might have said on there like to his face. You know what I mean? Like and it's and I would doubt it. Maybe it does. I don't know. But I just think that it's like I think a lot of times there's like this freedom because it's like, well, the first thing I would think maybe I condition that or maybe I think about it for a second and I'm like, okay, is this even worth engaging? Is this something that I
Yeah.
should engage with? Is this even my business? Because this is this person asking a question
Mhm.
to this person. Do I even cut in here? And there's this freedom of just being able to be
Yeah.
like, well, stop being rude, dude. I'm like, and again, if you look back at it, and I think that's actually another great thing about like a kind of a text-based platform. It's like
It's all
we
there.
can go back
Yeah. It's
and
literally
we
there.
can see
Yeah.
exactly what God said. Now you got triggered by a question, and
Hmm.
you insisted that you understood the level of genuineness to that question because you read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and now you're deciding to make somebody a bad guy, and now you're deciding that you're the thing that
Yeah.
you are is this like savior for this other guy. And I just think that,
There's so many levels to that, right?
yeah, but it's just like, but like that's like
So
that's like a lot of psychology behind kind of
Mhm.
what's going on there.
Yeah.
But in the end result, I think what it does is it means that you don't really have a level of interrogation of what like kind of what you should be doing with your work, because even if you have a goal, it's
Mm,
like you should be asking yourself, does that goal still serve you? Does that is the goal that I have right
yeah.
now still the thing that I should be doing?
Mhm.
There's no shortage of things that industries that change, times that change,
Mhm.
technologies that change, that might shift how you navigate
Yeah.
something. And so maybe that question that or that the posture of I really want to be a published poet this year, maybe 20 years, and I mean maybe it's not even true 20 years ago, but like let's say maybe 20 years ago, that's something that's like objectively a good thing because of the
Mhm.
fruit it can bear.
Yeah.
But maybe in 2024, it's like maybe you should question that a little bit. And so maybe as opposed to just chiming in with everybody else, which everybody else kind of did, it's good to have a voice that's
Mhm.
actually asking the question.
Mhm.
And
So
also, I killed a bat with a sword, so I don't know. I don't know if this
you
if that
win.
helps you
Bats you
understand.
win.
Like I do it in real life. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say it's always interesting with those posts because then they also seeing where other people kind of fall in, because then like later on a lot of people that were taking on I think an approach more along the line I think I was were like kind of also get involved like separately, which was I don't know, it's just interesting seeing kind of like the polarization that social media encourages pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, keep the people around keep those people around you that's gonna ask you the questions.
Yeah.
Like I think that it's okay if people are your friends and you're cool and you really rock with them and the people are just always cheering you on. But I mean you're not gonna get you're gonna get further if you got people in your corner, or even not even necessarily in your corner, just around you that
But
can
it's
ask those
but it works
questions.
both ways too, because if you're the person that's like, you know what, I just want that quick feed. I want the yay people,
Yeah.
cool. Because I think it's helpful for both sides. Because then the people who see what I post and don't like it, they can mute me and block me. Cool. Because you don't want to be for everybody. You know what I mean? It's better when people can see what you're about and to make a choice about is this
That's true.
what I want to do I want to rock with this, or do I want to like no, I'm not feeling this.
I had
Because
no
some people
idea
are
what
too neutral.
I had no idea what you were about to say, but
Okay.
in my mind, I was just like, and the people that don't like it, they can meet me every Friday at Third Way Cafe. Say it to my face
That's,
in a poem. You know what I mean? Do a poem on the mic.
but I think that's an important part of it. Especially from artists, writers, things like that, is
Yeah.
so much of the work is seems to be almost about like universal acceptance, and
Yeah.
that's actually one of the things that prevents us from growing, ironically, because no one knows how
Yeah.
you identify. If no one knows how you identify for things, they forget about you.
Yeah.
Roses might come to help us out.
Thank you, Roses. Appreciate the backup.
Not gonna lie, I love my Threads cheerleaders. Callisto go. Yeah, it was cool when they started coming out. I appreciated that. Yeah, honesty is the best policy for those sides. In fact, even just even having you guys here. I mean, all these are we got Threads people here.
Yeah, shout out to that.
Threads people doing the thing. All right, you guys have been very patient. We had a main topic that we announced almost an hour ago, which is we want to touch on a craft point, which I think is really, really important. And it's something that if you attend open mics regularly, I think you're going to see be an issue. Is how do you write the important, urgent poem that maybe doesn't, it might be something that directs you, I mean, that impacts you directly, but that more often than not, we're approaching it from an angle that's a lot grander and bigger and universal and global. And that's really difficult. Like, for instance, if I was like, if I had a class and I was like, hey, I want you to write a poem about war. That's where do you even start? That's really hard. It's like really hard.
Yeah, and I think it's not you know what, actually I take that because I think it's easy, but it's too easy, and that's the problem. Right? Because all of the immediate things that you can think about when it comes to war is also all the immediate things that everybody else can reach for when it comes to like the concept of war, right? And so I think it's like it's hard in that it's hard to maybe do it well, but it's easy in that it actually is. I feel like if you're given to write the first poem that kind of comes to your mind, and if you're given to put the first it's easy to do that, but it's like it's also like you're gonna put your words, you're gonna put your poem out into the world, and it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be met by all the other people that this was the first poem that they wrote.
That's about. I should rephrase. How do you write the poem on the big topic that finds a way to make itself stand out?
Yeah, no, that's good.
That's really hard. So I have 6. I have 6 strategies. Originally it's 5. I got 6. We're going to kind of talk through them. And then if you think of some of your own, Matthias, be sure to let me know.
Oh, for sure.
But the first strategy I would say would be that I think when we approach it, it's kind of like the situation where someone gives you a piece of paper and they're like, draw something. Like where it's like you can draw whatever you want. So you end up drawing nothing because you're just like, I don't know where to begin because it's so big. You know, I'm one of the people that, you know, I love constraints. I think constraints actually give you more freedom than when you don't have any constraints. For sure. From an art perspective, which is really interesting too. Some other debate. I did not have this debate today, but some debates I've seen is like the people that when we're talking about writing, and you even just introduce the idea of like marketing an audience. Like if I say, hey, I'm going to write this poem with this person in mind, or I'm going to market this poem towards this people.
Yeah.
The minute like poets are like so trained against like business terms, like the minute they hear the word marketing, just like eyes glaze over, or like just everything just turns off. Like I'm not even dealing with this. Whenever it's the same thing, it's just a constraint. It's just like write a sonnet. It's just like do this, do a sestina, do a villanelle, use iambic pentameter. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and it also is I feel, and I mean, we both have been in this position where you've been like commissioned to do a poem for like something specific, and like that's the same exact concept, and you're getting paid to do it, right? So it's like you're being forced to now let me think about words, let me think about what I do as a craft, but let me think about it in this specific direction with this specific intent. And like it's very easy to think about when you're like somebody's paying me to do it. Right. But typically if somebody's commissioning you for a poem, they're not commissioning you to just be a poet.
No.
You write with your poems. They're probably commissioning you to do something very specific and targeted. And I think, yeah, I mean, exactly what you were saying, like when it comes to like a lot of these larger kind of concepts, really being able to kind of focus in with something that is like kind of specific and targeted is important.
Yeah. Like I don't see it as all that different. But we're going back to our thing. So my first tip for you is that if you need to write a poem about a large topic, this tends to be pretty abstract and things like that. My first suggestion would be individualize. So consider, for instance, the speaker in your poem. How are they specifically impacted by this discussion?
Right. Well, actually, here.
Go on.
I don't want to be so like even before we get to the individualize, and it kind of depends on like maybe
These
the
steps are not in
situ-
order, but yeah, okay.
the scenario, because I think that one of the things that I would think about is what is the reason for me writing the poem. And if somebody commissioned you to like, you have like, you are the poet to write this poem because we're paying you to be the poet, like maybe that makes sense, you know what I mean, or what have you. But I think a lot of times if we're just like, I'm interested in writing a poem, and I mean, one of the things that I've seen a lot of poets do on the in the open mic circuit, more or less, a lot of poets, they don't have a lot of information about like, certain conflicts that are happening around the world or certain
Mhm.
like world events,
Mhm.
and they'll be like, but everybody's doing this poem, so I need to do this poem.
Yeah.
And you'll see them kind of write something or compose something that's all bad. Is not, I don't, let's not get into good and bad. It's just there's no specificity, and it's just kind of super cliche, and
Right.
it's whatever they heard and whatever they think the room is going to feel. And so I think one of the things is kind of searching to see if like, what is the exact purpose of you writing this poem. And if the purpose is, I need this kind of poem so I can get everybody clapping because this thing just happened and now I have to be out here saying it, like, maybe that's not a good poem. Maybe this, like, maybe you should leave that to somebody else. But if you actually have some kind of personal tether to it, or if you can find a personal tether to it that is feasible, you know what I mean? Like, I think like, that
Mhm.
kind of gives you a good reason, or
Mhm.
like a motivation that's a little bit higher. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think individualized is absolutely, like, I would say, like, once you've decided that the poem is the poem for you to write, like, I would, that's where I would start.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Does poem even want to like discuss that topic?
Yeah.
But I think that also ties into. So yeah, it's about you as a writer, but also again going back to the speakers. Like, why does the speaker need to explore this topic as well? Is
Yeah.
it because that what was it? They didn't feel validated as a child.
And that's all, man. Think about that, because it's like, man, so that happens a lot of times in poetry open mics, right? Or really in open mics in general, because a lot of
That
times
makes
it's like,
sense. Yes.
these people clap after you say a poem. In some rooms, shout
I
out
love that.
to like the Nest. In some rooms, they might give you a rewind. They might clap. They might snap it up for you. They might do a lot of stuff. That's like, man, like, if you are in a deprivation of love and adoration, like, oh man, being on stage and somebody like
If
oohing
you're
and
a middle
eyeing.
child,
Oh well, those middle children. I wouldn't know anything about
nothing.
that. But yeah, if you're in like deprivation and you're of like that kind of attention and people just like kind of holding your words on high, it's like, what better position to put yourself in
Yeah.
than saying something that, oh man, there. So I can't remember. Like, it said something. Shout out to it said, one of the true legends of like Ohio poetry
One of
and
the
really just
ancestors, yeah,
poetry
yeah.
in general, ancestor now. But yeah, he was like, you like in poetry, everybody's clamoring to say the thing that's important, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like people,
Mm.
like there's, and like sometimes the thing that's important is not as important as like the moment, or as important as like
Mhm.
what you can bring to the table, because like maybe, actually, what I was actually wondering. I was thinking about this. Like, I think whenever something big happens today, like you can imagine, like you can expect the next couple weeks at the open mic is going to be, everybody, they're trying their hand
Mhm.
at reflecting on the event, even if it has no ties to them. If
Mhm.
they can't even find a good thread
Yes.
to enter in, like, this is how it
Mhm.
affects me. They're always like kind of going in with, these are what they're going through, and now you're speaking a lot like what happened in that thread, right? A lot in
Mhm.
the thread, it's people
Mhm.
speaking up for them and stuff like that because they can't really figure out a way to kind of enter
Yeah.
in. I was like thinking, like, man, when Martin Luther King died, do you think that there's like a whole bunch of like open mics
Oh my
where
god! Could
guys?
you imagine if that happened this year, man? Oh,
Oh, they
oh
were
my
actually.
gosh!
I was about to say, like, it was like I wonder if there's like a whole bunch of white guys in there, but I'm just like that. they were segregated. So, oh my god, I would never have heard them.
But that stuff. It's not even just open mics too. Like it'll happen. Like for instance, like a science journal will release. Like for instance, like what's something science? Like fusion reactions. Like they're getting closer to like doing fusion, and that's in the news. What do you think happens in print journals 6 months later? In all of their issues, you see that one random poem about fusion. Like,
Yeah,
it happened. It's slower in print journals because they have to accept the poem. They have to wait for the issue to come out. But like it's everyone's like trend surfing,
yeah.
Okay, so our first step again, if you're writing about the big poem, to individualize it, to understand why you're writing it as well. So individualizing it, let's try to merge it together a little bit. Individualize it a little bit for yourself in terms of why you need to write it yourself, and also individualize it for your speaker. The next thing, and this is probably the thing that is the most frequent issue that I think causes some poets to groan, is the cliche. Trying to avoid the cliche. How many war poems are out there that have the word like bodies in them?
Plenty.
But
we should not be laughing when we're saying bodies. To be clear, like this is not about bodies, but we're laughing at like the cliche of it. Yeah,
this speaks to it so much because it's become so meaningless. The word doesn't carry anything anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think about like and I don't know if other poetry rooms have this same kind of issue. I know we ran into this like a lot of times in the nest, and I don't know why it is, but for some reason, every couple months there will be a poet that goes to the stage and they'll say the line, realize, realize, realize. And for some reason, every poet that does it thinks they're the one who thought of it.
So many little phrases like
it's so weird. I'll be like, man, where did you get? It's like, man, I just thought about it, and I was like, one time I was just like, man, they be really lying. They realize, and I'm seeing with my real eyes, and I realize the real eye, and like so it's like, and again, it's things like that. But it's like there's other super like just cliche terms that again, a lot of times if it's too easy to grasp, it's probably because you've been exposed to it 1,000 times before, right? And if you've been exposed to it, if there's a really complex subject that you're interrogating for your poem and you did no research whatsoever to pull it apart and extrapolate it and talk about it, then it's likely that, it's kind of the same thing. Like typically, that's actually, the reason why there's like specialties and like people specialize in things is because there's a general knowledge, like things that people generally know, like maybe you know that, hey, if you get a cut, you can disinfect it with rubbing alcohol or something like that, or like, but it's like that person is not going to be your surgeon, right? Because like your surgeon is going to have a much deeper knowledge of what to do in like more severe instances. And so if the level of understanding that you have of your topic is, disinfect the wound, then it's like, guess what? Like you're at where everybody else is at. And your goal should probably be, in order to avoid cliches, is to endeavor to have a knowledge base of whatever you're talking about at the level of like surgeon, right? You want to be like, if somebody asks you about this topic, you should be able to answer things a lot more in depth than just kind of that surface level.
Or I would say the opposite: embrace what you don't know and go crazy with it.
And that's my parenting strategy. And I'm sticking to it.
So like in the case like inside the surgeon, you could say, so like I needed a surgeon, so I got my cat. I was like, wait, what? Like you could play with the ignorance, embrace it.
Yeah,
that's how you avoid cliche. Another thing you can do is take a line or a section of a line that you have any doubts could be cliche, put it in the Google, see how many hits you get. I would say if you get more than like 1,000 hits, you're probably into that cliche territory.
Yeah, some of my favorite, like one of the processes that I have, and I actually use this when I'm like writing scripts too, is like if I'm really excited about a particular run of dialogue, like I'll be like, okay, like man, like let me double check something, let me make sure this is not something that I've heard or something like
Yeah.
that. I'll like copy it and I'll paste it and I'll put it in there. And like I'll just
Yeah.
like kind of see what's going on with it, and like I haven't gotten any kind of hits yet, but I'm like, yeah, like if it feels really good to say, if it feels really like natural, then I would still be like, yeah, let me make sure that I'm not just repeating
Yeah.
something.
My goal is when I'm doing that sort of exercise, I want 0 hits.
Yeah.
I want all of Google to say we can't find anything that has this.
What about Ask Jeeves? Have you ever
Oh
put in
wow,
Ask
just back
Jeeves
to the
and
90s.
see
Wow.
what Jeeves says?
I have not. Roses mentions, I'm just now starting to break the shell, cliche world. Good for you.
Yeah.
Get it. Get it. My brain is slowly evolving, listening to great poets dissect a concept, rubs off facts. And that's actually it's tricky when you do a lot of reading. It's also you hear this like from stand-up comics a lot too, where what happens to a lot of stand-up comics, they study comedy, then they make their own jokes. What ends up happening a lot, it's very common for a comic to insert a joke into their own set that they think they made, but they actually took from others.
What is that? Synesthesia? Is that what that's called?
I feel like that's
Synesthesia.
maybe if anyone
It,
has a word for that. I didn't know there was a word.
yeah, it's like in like because it's a super
It's
common
a real
thing in
thing. Yeah, it's
comedy.
a real
Like
thing.
because I mean, I'm sure it's a common thing in a lot of
Yeah.
mediums of art, especially mediums of art that are spoken, right? Because we have dialogue all the time, and a lot of like, if I hear somebody say something and then like I go to sleep the next day and I wake up, like typically I can't recite everything that somebody says, but I maybe get like kind of the bones of what somebody, like maybe I understand like the core of what somebody said or what they meant. And so, but yeah, like a lot of times with comics, because like jokes are, the whole point of the joke is that like the punchline is the thing that really gets you, right? It's like everything makes sense to the punchline. So if you kind of understand the beats of the joke, even if you don't understand the words, like there's a lot of comedians that got in a lot of trouble, kind of ended their careers more or less because I would make the argument that some of them were actually just straight up and down stealing jokes, right? But there was probably there's a few of them in there that it's like it from what it seems like to me is that if in the same way that if you're in enough poetry rooms and you hear these kind of poems, there's a lot of poetry rooms that there's actually a poem format that somebody asked for me to intermediate on like an issue like a couple years ago. Me and my brother JG, but like they were essentially like, I wrote this poem, and the poem is like the refrain is like in my city. So they say in my city, blah 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 blah, in my city, blah blah blah. But I'm like, like that's a like neither of you made that. You know what I mean? Like neither of you created that.
Right.
And I don't know the exact origins, but I just know it's huge. You know what I mean? Like it's all over the place.
Right.
And so this thought that either of you created it, which again, the test that we just said, the test of if you type in your refrain and you put it into Google,
if Google's autofill in your line, that's a problem.
oh my God, you can put it into YouTube right now, and it's like everybody, no matter what city it is, Plainsville, Arkansas, in my city, grass grows. It's like, yeah,
like the reality is, hey, when you write a poem on Google, it should get 0 hits. Google should not be able to find your poem
unless it's pulling up the poem that you just wrote.
Clistigo Kid says, I used the phrase chew to fat and just desserts recently and Googled them to make sure I understood the cliche. That's actually one thing you can do with cliches. If you're looking to break the rules, you can take the cliche and make it yours in a way. You see this a lot with marketing. I was listening to a talk by the future Christo, and one of the things he was drawn to, there's this like dried fruit company, and they're trying to, I mean, it's marketing. They're trying to like sell their products. So one of the things that the dried food company has is one of their sayings is pit happens, because in dried fruit there includes pits and leaves and things like that. So
I get it. Yes, let's get a little golf clap.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. Okay.
So if you can find ways to make a cliche new, so maybe instead of chew the fat, You find another way to say it, you know, or like I said, just desserts, like just appetizers or something like that, if it's the right context, you know, because people will play along with that. You know,
Yeah.
so that's one thing. The last thing I want to just mention about cliches is not just about specific phrases. Cliche is also about concepts and ideas. Um, I don't like to use this example, but like for instance, if we deal with, for instance, interactions with police officers, you know, if you hear that poem at an open mic, you already have an idea where this poem's going to go.
Yeah.
You know, but what if it's the interaction with the police officer that actually goes well, or they're helpful, you know, because it plays with the tension and it amplifies it, and it's tricky, and it's
Yeah.
complicated, and that's the whole reason why it's adding layers and it's adding nuance, you know.
Yeah, but even making the interaction like if I had to write a poem today about a police interaction, I mean I personally would go funny as opposed to dramatic. But that's just like me personally, but it's also like I think that like you don't view that situation as funny, right? Like that's not a funny encounter. Oddly enough, like years ago, like I had like a police interaction where it's like we got stopped. We were on our way back home from a show in, I want to say, was it Detroit? I'm pretty sure it was Detroit. But we had the show in Detroit, and on our way back, oh no, it was Dayton. I'm sorry, it was Dayton because we were on. No, maybe it was Detroit. It was one of those. But we're on our way back, and while we're on our way back, we get stopped by the police. Like when we're like 20 minutes away from our home, from like everybody. Like I was dropping people off, so like 20 minutes away from like the first drop off, and it was so interesting that like I had to tell the police officer. I was just like, he was just like, you know, where are you coming back from? I'm like, we're poets. We just got back from doing poetry, and he was just like, oh, kind of like rap, and I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean maybe kind of. And he was just like, you should do, can you do a poem for me right now? And I'm like, and the thing is that you have to know about me is that back then I didn't have the funny poems. All the poems were like the police interaction that goes wrong, right? So this is before I was able to like, I was somewhat more versatile. So like I'm like, if I go too deep into this poem, it might end poorly for me here. But I ended up doing like Kobe, like a short way through. Which again, if you go deep enough into that poem, it's not gonna go well for that interaction. But it's just to say that if I had to write a poem about that interaction,
Yeah.
I think I could go visceral. I could go like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But then it was like, or like I think me right now, I'd probably write that's probably a
Mhm.
funny interaction,
Mhm.
right? Or at least an interesting interaction.
Mhm.
But I think everybody has like
Mhm.
this, what the view or the kind of the filter that they see these situations out of are the whatever they perceive would get the most likes and
I mean,
adoration from the
that's one of the,
audience. And so every single situation that they have,
yeah.
they try to force that kind of narrative into
Uh-huh.
it. And maybe you don't have to.
And that's the danger of cliche, because cliche can actually still get you a lot of claps and rewinds, ironically, which is,
Yeah, just because then, you know what? You know, one of the things that I really
we're re-traumatizing ourselves.
we need to talk about this in poetry rooms, okay? There's a lot of poets that they know, like they'll take popular songs and they'll just like
Mm.
say the most popular line from each popular song.
They
You
may,
know,
they'll probably sing it too. There's a good chance they'll sing it.
some of them might. Yeah, some of them might. Some of them that can't do.
Someone in the crowd,
Someone in the crowd will, and I'm like, that's another example of like it destroys the actual integrity of the poem, right?
Yeah,
Because you're now the thing that you've written can only be said because if I'm looking at it on a paper, it's like this is kind of garbage, right? I'm just seeing a whole bunch of song reference. But if I'm seeing it spoken, then like maybe that's not like you're kind of taking yourself out of
mm-hmm.
the poem itself because I'm being like, oh, here's some jam or something like that.
Mm.
And so, but there's a way to be able to do that if you can make the song into the world, like put the song into the world, and then now there's like some kind of
Mm.
tool that you're like, you know, like
Yeah.
way that you're using
Mm-hmm.
the song lyrics or something like that. So there's ways to kind of do things that kind of break
Yeah.
cliche, but typically people are not doing those
The
things.
other way would be to really individualize it again, which goes back to the first point. So like if it is based on a real interaction, then go into the actual what actually happened. Like
Yeah.
for instance, if I had to do, I don't know any cop poems. If I had to do one, I'd probably do one about. I remember we were in San Antonio. It was with Kathy. It was my dad, my mom, and we were driving, and we dropped my parents off at the hotel. But we did it like there was no traffic at the moment because there was like a red light, so we pulled over at the hotel on the side of the road, and um I was driving, so I let my parents out, and then the cops came, and I guess the reason was because we were blocking traffic. I guess even though there wasn't any traffic at the time, but okay, legal stop, fine. But then like I mean, just the whole interaction, like the cop being like super aggressive with my dad, but then checking on my mom, a white woman, and like making
Yikes.
sure she like and like they were like, oh, we thought we saw like some like hitting going on in like the backseat. Like what? Yeah, yeah,
What?
right. Like it was
Jesus.
but to go into so I have a specific angle into it, and it's also a because now it's like so my angle would be cop poem, but from like kind of like mixed race angle situation, kind of like
Yeah.
thing, so it's like what's the unique angle you can take into the topic, which again kind of ties back into individualizing it, but this is what you can also kind of break from.
I mean, I want to get to this comment as well, but one of our good friends, he's a poet. I feel like he does this really well as well in his work. Jordan, actually, one of the things that like every time I see him perform, like he's able to kind of talk about kind of these broader scope things that he's dealing with, but he's able to minimize them into these experiences
Mm-hmm.
that he's specifically having, that he can give you the
Yeah.
texture and the color of, and give you all the angles that are happening inside of it. And that's kind of the thing that's missing in a lot of the
Yeah.
poems and the work that try to tackle these large
Mm-hmm.
issues. It's like, man, like, but the thing that you're saying is just like a whole bunch
Yeah.
of the words that I hear all the time,
Yeah.
like and okay, everybody does like the hands up thing, and which I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, like if you're in the march, I'm not trying to take away the validity of those things, but I'm saying that like that's in all the poems. Okay, you have not like, and people are gonna
Yeah.
clap for it. People are gonna be like, but I'm like, man, you should maybe like dare to write like a poem, like try to
Mm-hmm.
create something
Yeah.
that has somewhat more depth, I suppose.
If the goal is making it stand out,
Yeah.
some people the goal is for the claps. Some people the goal
Yeah.
is just to vent and things like that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, hey, if you really are trying to have the poem stand out among all the other poems on the same topic, these are things you want to be considering. um, the next thing, kind of similar to what we talked about but also slightly different, is determining the angle. What I mean by that is once you have an idea that okay, the poem's going to be talking about this topic, what's the how can we approach it from a way that hasn't been done before? So for instance, if all the approaches to the topic are about people, well, maybe I'll take on a different perspective. Maybe I'm going to I want to talk about this topic, but I'm going to approach it from the angle of like a tree that saw it happen, or a piece of paper, a piece of trash on the ground, or something like that. Or I'm going to take it from the angle of maybe I want to play around with time. So maybe I'll like switch instead of going chronologically. Maybe I'll reverse time or something like that. So what's the unique angle you can add into the piece?
Can you give us like an example of a unique angle like you've taken with one of your beats? I mean, I feel like you have a lot,
So,
but there's one in specific that I'm thinking of. Let me see if you.
Thomas Jefferson.
Yes, yeah,
So I have
yeah.
shout out to what journal? I think it's Heavy Feather Review. So I have a poem called Excerpts, Letters from Thomas Jefferson to Barnum and Bailey. And it's tackling slavery, but it's tackling slavery from the perspective of Thomas Jefferson, who we're imagining is actually writing letters to Barnum and Bailey. So it's like Thomas Jefferson making lots of allusions to slavery, but doing it through talking about like lions and a lot of like circus act
Yeah.
type of things. So it's a slavery poem, but it's trying to approach it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I remember, man. I think the first time I read that was like a little bit before me and Jeff. We had a chat book that we wrote together. And like, so a little bit before that is when I first like had heard that poem, and it's so refreshing because it's like, again, the my favorite poems are the ones I'm like, I don't understand how you're gonna make these two worlds kind of coexist with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I don't expect these two worlds to start coexisting. And so again, I think that's like something that if you're trying to get the recipe for your poem, if the recipe for your poem is what the recipe for everybody else's poems are, then you're probably making the same poem. You know what I mean? But if somebody, like, one of my favorite things is like when I'm on stage and maybe I'm giving like the premise for a poem, like, everybody, like, once you kind of really give the premise for a poem, everybody's like, oh my god, like what's, like, because they don't know what to expect now, because like now they're like, I think one of the ones that I do is like, there's oh, the Denzel poem, actually, because I was actually going to think about another one, but like the Denzel poem was like, I think that's a good example of it, where it's like the intro of the poem is probably, it's a cop poem, it's like a police encounter poem, right? And so it's an example of like, we're giving the premise of this police encounter. Oh, I didn't even know. Yeah, I guess that is a police encounter. It's messed up because it's like I'm thinking about the secondary, but it's like, it's a police encounter poem, but it's a police encounter poem that's like this like dire police encounter poem, right? Because, well, it's not even necessarily dire because the kids lived and everything, but it's like traumatic for sure.
I mean, it's also the way you have to present it. I mean, adding in Denzel will do that, but it's also very cinematic. You approach it from like a monologue.
Yeah, it's a monologue, but it's also like it's also, you have to like really. I don't think that the premise of it is something that you think about until somebody says it, and then you're like, wait a minute. Every time, so it's like essentially the premise is, these kids are walking home in Grand Rapids, and as they're walking home, a police officer, he pulls his service arm on them because this is what you do with black boys and whatever. But the second thing, and maybe this is more important, and like, so now I think a lot of times people start keying in, and I think the first couple times that I did that, people would be like, they're kind of like, oh man, this is okay. This is really important poem that he's about to do. And then like the second thing, maybe this is more important. And I'm like, oh, what's more important than this is that whenever Denzel Washington has a gun pointed on him in a movie, he does a speech. Because you don't even think, like, again, so many people don't even think like, wait a minute. Yeah, every movie he does that, but he does it every single movie when he has a gun pointed on him. So I think it's like again, that's just another one of the things that made that poem an interesting poem for me to explore for myself. You know what I mean? Because like, I think first and foremost, like, it has to be interesting for me to explore before I can try to make it an interesting thing for somebody to watch. Is that, I get to really just imagine something that a lot of people maybe don't even think twice about. And I'm putting that together with this incident that they maybe heard about in the news, but they probably, if somebody else is writing the poem, they're they're kind of giving the customary, why do this to black boys, all this, and that's fine. I'm not trying to say don't do that, but I'm saying that, like, I'm not writing the poem that you might expect to happen after I give the initial first part of the premise. There's also an act like the impression, so it's that. You want to see that poem, or you should actually, Jeff needs to perform at the open mic this Friday. You should be at the open mic. First of all, that's true. You should be at their Way Cafe 7:30. But I think it's free. I think we should all just encourage Jeff to
we'll see what happens.
Perform a poem.
Maybe I'll bring a poem.
We should encourage it. Let's encourage it aggressively.
Our next tip for trying to write about the big topic. I'm going to call on Natalie Diaz for this. So Natalie Diaz has a book. When My Brother Was an Aztec. I hope I'm quoting that title right. One of the things that she does, and also just reading interviews by like Jennifer Given, if anyone is familiar with her work too, is when they're approaching. That's the guy must be a performance. Oh my gosh. We'll see, guys. We'll see.
Do it.
Taking real events. So you're taking an actual situation, but then you're playing with it. You're amplifying it like by like 1,000, you know. Um
Yeah. Yeah, roses. Let's go.
So one of the things that she does, so her book talks a lot about the addiction, like the issues her brother was going through. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it starts incorporating elements of like the supernatural. Like you get like gods, ghosts, just the fantastic that start appearing. So you take something that's grounded very much in reality, a real situation, but then you start adding in these outside otherworldly components to it. And a lot of times it's not even something that's like immediate. A lot of times it's something that the scene kind of devolves into it as you get deeper into the poem and things kind of start falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another strategy that is a way that you can kind of approach these really big topics. Again, if you're looking for examples of writing about like drug addiction, that's a book to consider.
Yeah, I think the other kind of thing I kind of do. I like doing the inverse. I like taking things that are like these really large concepts, really fantastical concepts, and making them mundane and making them like almost like conversational, right? Because I think one of the things that really interests me about I would say like a lot of like the Bible concepts and the Bible poems that I have are like these instances where it's like these really big, like I have a poem that's way too long of a poem that I probably don't perform. I don't perform much, but it's essentially about Jesus, like about the origins of yelling Jesus Christ in shock. Like that is to me probably like as far as things that I've written is like the reason why that interested me is like this idea that you would even think about where that came from, but also like the how you're taking the Jesus and you're making this interaction like this super mundane. You're actually pulling a fictional character that didn't happen, which is Jesus' younger brother Tanner, which I'm not going to get into the middle child syndrome, but it's just it's just important to acknowledge. But yeah, no, I mean, and I know you have plenty of poems where it's like I think that, and one of the things that I really appreciate about your poems, you're taking things that are, I think, really wholesome and interesting concepts, and I think you're bringing them down to a manageable kind of moldable level that feels like I can handle it, and feels like if I couldn't really wrap my arms around this concept before, I can now. So yeah,
I'm thinking also more about the police. I have the next police encounter poem I have I have one called Paleontologist, like from the back of a patrol car, and which I just remember, which was based on basically I was walking home once, and the police literally put me into their cruiser because they thought I was someone who had stolen someone else's car.
So you were walking.
So like, it was him. So it was like what, which is like a super like terrifying experience.
Wait, this is
I cannot go. I was like, I can't just go home. And like, no. I was like, can I wait outside? Like, no, you gotta get in the car. I was like, what? So then like basically this one woman came up like in her car and she's like, wait, so I can't even see her. And she basically was like looking at me and
wait, you said she's white, so you can't even see her?
No, she's far away.
Oh, I was like, what? She's white, so I don't even see her. I don't even know she exists.
But I mean, thank God she's like, no, that's not the guy that stole my car because I didn't steal.
If she would have just gave the other answer.
but that's actually kind of what the whole poem was exploring. Like, so it's a paleontologist, so he's throwing out all these like fossil terms and digging terms and things like that. But also, it's about like diagnosing fossils, and like the time it takes to do that, and analyze it and to make sure you get it right. Whereas she's having to make a decision in like 2 seconds, like, is this the guy or is this not the guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just kind of like that aspect. We write a lot of poems.
Hey, what if like 5 years from now we just find out like Jeff was the guy who saw the guy?
Or some of us said things they haven't thought about. Yes, what's up?
Nice.
That's what we're here for. Yeah.
Nice.
Get your police poem. Oh man, everyone's just gonna be
Who's just like, I am a police officer.
The good police poem that can go a lot of ways. Is it all right? Anyways, next, and we kind of mentioned this. I have 2 more points for you guys, and then we'll head out. I know it's super late, so we appreciate you watching with us.
W stream.
Appreciate also Matthias still being here. I know it's late too. Got a wife. They got a bat to kill at home.
I do have a no. The bats only come on Fridays after the Diversus open mic. So,
Steaks. Which, by the way, so I never really watched Buffy as a child, but I told Kathy that
the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, but I told Kathy
Matthias the Vampire Slayer.
Every time Buffy kills a vampire, her tagline should have been, "I hope you like steak," and then she steaks in the chat. Which one? Both.
I just.
Imagine like if she said that like every time. Steak. No.
Or I hope you like a steak because I have a
Not
buffet.
Oh god. Buffet to vampire. This is like a Family Guy. This is what you guys are watching.
Yeah.
So adding steaks. Yeah. Roses is with it. Roses is with it. They get it. Anyway, so steaks. The good kind. Dad joke, yes.
Yeah, W stream.
I got many years of dad jokes before I came into so this goes back to some of the other points as well. You see a trend. A lot of these are related. But like steaks, what does your speaker have to gain by the end of the poem, and what do they have to lose? Like if they don't gain what they want to gain, where are they going to lose? Like if you're doing the war poem, the drug poem, whatever the poem is, what is personally involved for them? So for instance, for Natalie Diaz, writing about addiction, the stakes are, I mean, she's going to lose her brother to addiction, you know?
Yeah.
What's personally involved? Because a lot of times this is really hard if you're writing a big poem that you don't have any personal experience with. If I'm writing a war poem and I've never been to war, I don't know anything about. The only thing I know is about the news. Or for instance, like homeless, like how many poems about homeless beggars and things have we seen about like people on the street? Like it's like, these topics and things like that, you know. But if you don't have any like personal connection with it, it's going to be really hard to resonate because you're not going to have any personal stakes.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we talked about. Like, I think that like kind of additional kind of intro kind of item, which is like, okay, it's going to make it, it's going to be hard for you to write stakes for something that you can't even figure out your entry point into this, into like your entry point. I'm not talking about the speaker's entry point. I'm talking about your entry point. Because if you can't even figure that part out, then like it's going to be really hard for you to kind of create a dynamic where there are stakes that are transferable that people can understand, because like you don't even really understand.
What I will say is that for my poems, at least, I don't know about yours, a lot of times when I write a poem, I have no idea where the direction is going to go. Like the Thomas Jefferson poem, I had no idea I was going to write out Thomas Jefferson in a circus. The paleontologist poem, I didn't know I was going to be writing about a paleontologist in a patrol. I had no idea what was going to happen. So a lot of times for my poems, the stakes don't reveal themselves until I've already kind of done a first draft, and then I can see what the poem's doing. Like, oh, this is what it's saying.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Sometimes you have to fight and like sit with it and like, why am I saying it? Like, what's the point of this? You know, it takes a lot of kind of internal investigation.
Yeah. I think same. I think for most of the poems, I don't know that's kind of the thing with creativity too. I think like genuine creativity is like the writer is figuring this out.
Yeah, it's
like as well. Like like maybe the performance is the audience figuring it out, but the writing is like the writer figuring this thing out. So I think most of the stuff that I think the only thing like the Jesus younger brother Tanner poem, like that poem is the only one that I was just like, I know the punchline at the end. I know, I know what the punchline is. But everything, like most of the other poems that I've ever written, is like I'm kind of exploring this concept as I'm writing.
I forget who said it, but they said you know, a poem's not done until something in it has surprised you as the poet.
Oh, that's Ash Ketchum in Pokemon said that. Wise guy.
The last thing, this was a tip that was given to me when I worked with 5e Francis. Is every really really good poem has something weird in it, something that like you're reading like wait what. Like if and it, maybe if you read it the first time you might just kind of pass over, but there's something like rather just like a weird like word choice or like a line that's like has some weird spacing or like structurally is just different, like there's just something weird
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that you have to have something like your poem. I think the best poems, so like the really best, a really good example of this, Columbus writers that like, and we've talked about them. We talked about him on this podcast like a couple times. But Zach Hanna, shout out to Zach Hanna. I know you're out there somewhere doing maybe poetry things or just regular
He's
life
doing a lot
things.
of poetry stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, shout out to him. He's doing a lot of stuff in the city. But like, especially when we would be like kind of locked into the every Wednesday writer's block, kind of rotation where it's like, I think there's a few people whose poems I'm like always looking forward to, and Zach is absolutely one of them, because it's like he's always going to do something with the poem that I'm like, I don't know how you got that. I don't know what happened in your brain to make that poem happen. You know what I mean? Or even not even just the poem itself, like the type of performance that you were able to pull out of that poem. Like it's never something straight away. It's never something that you would expect.
yeah, yeah. So those are my 6 points. So if you're trying to write the big topic, I hope that those 6 are able to kind of guide you in that process and make it a little easier.
For sure.
Any final thoughts from you? We talked about a lot of things today.
We did talk about a lot of things, but I think probably the most important thing is, and this is something that I want all the writers out there to kind of
skills.
That's it. That's it. Also, just keep in mind, if you're on threads like Jeff, we'll clap back at you. So that's
I'll
something.
do it through questions. Try to figure out what the hell we're even arguing about in the first place, and most likely you'll give up before.
You'll give up before I do. I have a lot of time on my hands. But yeah, there's that. There is the open mic is this Friday.
Yes.
So like here's the thing. Here's the thing about open mics that are happening this Friday. You should be at them because they're going to be at Third Way Cafe.
There's actually 2 open mics you can go to, and in fact,
there is too.
I'm hoping that our show will be over before the Ness is. So
yeah, because we can do. Oh, we could.
If you want to get like your like mini writing conference on of open mics,
dude, run the gambit.
Come to us,
dude. Oh my god!
And then as soon as we're out,
excited for you guys.
Book it over to the east side of Columbus to
Lincoln Cafe.
For a show that. It says it's going to start at 9. We'll see what happens.
We're back on Sunday night. I mean, sure.
What I will say is that
we didn't say 9 Eastern.
What I will say is that there is a very good chance that if you leave our show when it's done, you can make the Nest.
Follow me. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Just like follow us. Like, and I think you're going to get a really good kind of dynamic and flavor, because you're going to get. I think the open mic at the Nest is kind of give you something that is a little bit different than when you're going to get from Diverses. And you know what I mean? Like, I think like that, just atmosphere wise, right? Like, like, and like, I think like if you're a poet, one of the things that really helped me especially when I was starting, is that I was always in like multiple types of rooms. You know what I mean? Like I would go to like 5 or 6 open mics a week. And so I would be in all different types of rooms in Columbus working on poems that like see how they worked or what happened or the issues with poems and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're looking to really improve and you're looking to just have a good time, I mean, you should. One is free. So the Diverses is free, so you could just literally just walk right in, right? And then at 9 o'clock, you should. We're gonna go straight from Diverses to the Nest open mic experience. It's at the Lincoln Cafe on
Long Street.
So there's that right across the street from the Lincoln Theater. You should go there. I think it's $10. And you should you should sign up on the open mic and then just say like, hey, I came here from Diverses, and then like we can have a dialogue about that, because that's what I'm gonna say. Right.
Cool.
But yeah, go into different types of rooms. Like don't
Do
just
that.
don't corner yourself into just one type of space.
And if there are no rooms, then make one.
Ooh, that's a bar.
Yeah.
If there's no rooms, then make one. And then lastly but not leastly, and this is again, if you're gonna take anything away from this podcast, I killed a bat with the sword. Okay, I did that,
and he liked it.
I'm pretty sure it was Dracula. Like I don't have any proof of that, but I haven't
about to turn into a man.
I haven't seen Dracula since. So you tell me. That's what I'm saying. You tell me.
I'm gonna end the stream. Thank you to Clistigo Kid for Clistiga Kid. I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. But thank you for hanging out. Also hanging out
thanks.
on Threads as well. Same thing with Roses.
Appreciate you
as well. Who else was with us? Patrick, I'm guessing you're no longer with us, but Patrick,
shout out to Patrick.
Thank you for.
Oh, you have a dog in your profile, man.
That's a dog.
We
that's a weird finger. Yes.
No, we had Diverses. We love dogs. We appreciate the dogs.
All right. Once more, my name is Jeff.
My name is Matthias.
Thank you guys for your time. We will see you guys later. Have a good day. Have a good night. Good afternoon, guys.
Bye. Protect yourself.
We'll see you guys later.